Underdog Fantasy is the fastest-growing fantasy app and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Just jump on UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app, draft your team, and that's it. And if drafts aren't your thing, they also have a pick'em game where you can win 20 times your money in a single night. Use promo code RADIO, and Underdog will double your first deposit when you sign up with up to $100 in bonus cash. Deposit $100, get $100 free. That's promo code RADIO. Terms and conditions apply.
Target has Laundry Day covered because they offer a great selection of concentrated Tide Pods to help with all your laundry needs. Tide Pods clean, freshen, and help rejuvenate your clothes with odor fighters and stain removers. Did you know Tide Pods clean better than the leading liquid bargain detergent? Tide Pods are powerful enough to make your whites white and your brights bright, even in cold water. Just toss in 1 Tide Pod for small loads, 2 for medium, 3 for large. It's that easy. For great value and convenient pickup options, get Tide Pods today at Target.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of The Yard. Hope things are well with you today. Hope it's a payday for you. That's one of the best days in life, isn't it? You get a little money. That way I know I can eat out a couple days, right? It's a big deal. It is. I hope today is that day for you. It is the 10th of June. It is also the Top Dog Camp Day. We're going to preview that a little bit later in the show. Eager to get out there. To be honest with you. It's a lot of kids that are kind of vying for spots in this class that will compete today. So I'm looking forward to that. I would be remiss if I did not mention the incident that happened yesterday in Meridian. For those of you that are unaware, the nephew of former Mississippi State head coach Sylvester Croom was gunned down. Kenneth Croom was shot and killed in the line of duty, serving the community. Reports suggest there was a domestic dispute. I'm not even going to give the guy's name. It was a domestic dispute, and Croom received the call and went to go investigate, and a shot rings out, and reports are that he was in the process of saving 4 children and was shot and killed. Every life is precious. Everyone. And there are times that there are these crimes of passion that happen, and they're difficult to kind of comprehend. A lot of Facebook postings out there in advance of this that have drawn a lot of scrutiny from the individual that's suspected in this shooting. It's very disappointing. That community has been rocked. It's very, very, very unsettling. And so I'm not going to get into one of these back the blue, NWA, the police discussions. Not going to do it. But things happen in life, and sometimes people lose their cool, but, violence is never the answer. It's not. And now, 3 families have been torn apart. Those that love the shooter, those that love the young lady who was shot and killed, those who love those children who were there to witness that, and those that love Kenneth Croom. Not to mention all of the people that are somewhat affiliated, friends, extended family, co-workers. There's a lot to that. There are a lot of people hurting today, and our thoughts and prayers go out to those folks. I hate to begin on a somber note today, but I think it's important to acknowledge that. And let's not pretend that it's just another day. And then we have a bit of a connection, to at least one of these families through Coach Croom. It was his brother Kelvin's son, Kenneth, that was shot and killed. And I watched with great interest Therese Appel, former Clarion Ledger reporter, now out there doing some work for another organization, talked about how there were so many people in law enforcement that knew Kenneth Croom because he worked extensively around the state, a former Jackson Police Department officer. believe you work down in Brookhaven as well. A lot of people in Newton County awfully upset about this. Some connections as well to the family. And so I share that today in hopes that we can have a bit of a dialogue. And, it's just never an acceptable situation, to kill a loved one. I mean, it's just not. And I hate to sit in judgment of other people, but I think that's one thing that we can all agree upon. I mean, I never know what people are dealing with. And there's all this talk about mental health and things of that nature. And there are many times that's kind of an excuse. I read something online. Somebody said, well, what did they do to him to make him snap? Okay, well, let's stop excusing negative behavior. How about that? Let's stop trying to explain away negative behavior. At the end of the day, there are a lot of people impacted by this senseless tragedy. And so for all of us here at the Boneyard, I want to offer our most sincere condolences to everybody impacted by this. And we hope and pray for justice. The manhunt for the shooter continues today. And he is a former law enforcement officer himself, according to reports, recently relieved of his duty. And so you got to think, too, it's probably going to be a little more difficult to find a guy like that maybe is somewhat knowledgeable about police procedure when it comes to manhunts and how to kind of lay low and stay under the radar. But there are no winners in this thing. None. Everybody loses. Everybody. And there's nothing that justifies it. Nothing. Under any circumstances. The report I read last night is that officials in Meridian say that Officer Kroom essentially died a hero's death and saved 4 innocent children from certain death. And so I share that today because I think it is important for us to acknowledge these situations and not just act like, well, it's just every day. It's not. It's not. And, for our men and women of law enforcement, they're working a job I would never want. I don't know how anybody would ever want to be a police officer today. It's always been a very difficult situation. But there is more contempt and disrespect for law enforcement today than any point in our history, I believe. I suspect that'll always be the case. Again, not going to give it into a big dialogue about that sort of things and my political views and things of that nature. And we're going to talk about some political things today in the next segment of the show. But please remember these families, in your thoughts and prayers. And to be honest with you, and I'm going to be blunt with you about it, is that, your thoughts and prayers are insufficient at a time like this. But it's all that we can offer. It's all we can offer. And it just seems so insufficient. It really does. It really does. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I love Bulldog Burger Company, and I love them before they love me. And I suspect I love them more than they love me. I like eating there. I really do. I always have. I was one of their first customers. Brian Haydad and I went. Shortly after they opened, we went and had a great time. And I was like, hey, this place is going to make it. There are some times that I'll go eat at a new place, whether it be in Starkville or somewhere else, and I sit there for a while and I think, you know what, they're going to have to pick it up. This is not a good experience. And you give them a chance to kind of work out the kinks. But from the very beginning, Bulldog Burger Company was a great organization. Very proud to partner with them. I like to stick with the winners, and that's what you get with the Eat With Us group. Bulldog Burger Company now has 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the newest one, Lake Harbor Drive, there in your Ridgeland, Flowood area. Be sure and go check them out. Have the spring rolls as your appetizer. They will make you and everybody around you better looking. That is now officially in writing on the menu. It is not, something you can take lightly. We're always looking for self-improvement. We talk about self-care. Go to Bulldog Burger Company and improve your looks. Make you and the world a better place. I like that. I like the mission. And I tell you, I've been on a stretch here where those Sloppy Joe sliders have just kind of hit the spot. That's a great lunch portion. Really enjoyed that. And I like that BLT salad. Again, I like it grilled. You may like it fried. Either way, you're going to be satisfied. Go by and check them out today. Get that chocolate shake to go. You deserve it. You absolutely do. You put up with a lot of nonsense. Treat yourself at Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. All right, are you aware, maybe you are, those of you that maybe don't live in the state of Mississippi, maybe you're kind of unaware of what's happening with the IHL board. There is a new bill before the state legislature to abolish the IHL board. And I saw the pictures yesterday, and again, a commentary, I guess. I see people that show up with these signs and stuff, and they go to the state legislature and they make their voices heard. I don't know how much that matters, to be honest with you. When you show up with your sign and that kind of stuff, I know it makes people feel good. They feel somewhat empowered. I don't know that it's going to get one state legislator to vote one way or another. I just don't think that's how government works. But hey, to each their own. But you will not see me going before the state legislature with some signs about things that I don't have a lot of control over. I feel passionately about a lot of things, but I'm not motivated to use my precious time to go down there. And again, maybe we see things differently. I just don't think that matters. I think if anything, it could become an annoyance. Like if I'm a state legislator and I show up and it's time to go to work and I've got all these people out here in my face and screaming and yelling about a certain cause, I might be inclined to vote the other way. So I don't know. But to kind of frame it up for you a little bit, and there was actually a bill, I guess, back in 2020. It's not the first time. But back in 2020, there was a bill that, was proposed. And House Speaker Philip Gunn actually killed the bill. Pretty rare political move there. It was a Democratic move, I guess. The article from Mississippi Today says that 10 Democrats filed a bill early in February of 2020 that would abolish the state's 12-member college board and allow each of the state's 8 public universities to appoint their own board of trustees. And so Chris Bell was the author of the bill, and if memory serves me correct, he is the author of the new bill. But Philip Gunn, I almost called him Bishop Gunn, after that great band from Natchez, used what's called a triple refer. I think that's what the actual legislative term is. But he killed the bill before it even made it to the House floor for debate, calling the bill disrespectful. There's a lot of legalese involved, as there should be, I guess. When what's happened and, when the state legislators get together. But the triple refer, they say at the time, and I just got a message, they have now caught the shooter in Ackerman. How about that? Not too far from us. Interesting. So good work to law enforcement there. Good work. But in the practice of triple referring bills is rare. And according to Adam, I guess it's Gaucho's article, it said at the time, in February of 2020, there had been 1,600 or so bills that had been filed, and Gunn had only triple referred 5 of them. And 4 of them were related to Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act of Mississippi. And then there is this bill to abolish the IHL. So here is what, and I don't know a lot about Chris Bell and his allies on the state legislative body, but I don't know their full reasoning behind all of this. But the IHL board has a lot of power. Now, the one thing that I would suggest is that more times than not, the universities get what they want anyway. I don't know, and maybe Mark Keenum could tell me differently, I don't know that the IHL board has really been much of a hindrance to Mississippi State. I don't know if that's the case. I know there were a lot of people that were very critical of the IHL board when Doc Fogelsong got the appointment to be the president here at Mississippi State. There were a lot of people that said the IHL board kind of botched that. And there were a lot of people involved, when Ole Miss ultimately landed with Glenn Boyce. And there was a lot of controversy about that. And I think people today would suggest to you that Chancellor Boyce has done a good job at Ole Miss. I think most people at Ole Miss now have realized it's been okay. But the process itself was very convoluted. Boyce was like part of a committee, and next thing you know, he leaves the committee, and then, the part of the search committee, and then he ultimately becomes the candidate. Then there's been some Jackson State complaints about their chancellor/president search. And so at its core, basically the IHL board, makes these decisions, that are, of a financial matter, and of course with leadership. And since state tax dollars are part of the funding for the institutions in the state of Mississippi, there probably needs to be some legislative oversight. I think that's probably fair. And again, there are people that are going to have strong opinions about this, and I can promise you, the people that, Steve, you know what you're talking about. And you know what? Maybe you're right. I admit that. But I think it's an interesting situation because here are my personal beliefs. And maybe that's why you tuned in today. Not about this, but maybe you want to hear what I have to say. I think Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, Jackson State, Alcorn, whoever, I think if Mississippi State wants to hire somebody to be the university president, I think they should be able to do that. I don't think there should be this encumbrance to that. And again, I think there has to be some level of oversight. I don't know if there has to be so much control. When we got ready to hire Mark Keenum, and we nearly hired him the previous time, when it was time to hire Doc Fogelsong, we nearly hired Mark Keenum then. There was a lot of support for Mark Keenum then. Let me say this. I am a Mark Keenum fan and a Rhonda Keenum fan, very much so. I think the university has really thrived under Dr. Mark Keenum's leadership. Now, is that to say that Doc's perfect? Absolutely not. I'm sure there are some people that have had different experiences, and probably many of those people on campus, maybe they didn't get funding that they wanted. Maybe they didn't get something approved they'd like, and so people's experiences vary. I don't know that Mississippi State's ever been in more capable hands. I don't know that we've ever been in a better situation than we are in now. And some would say, you know what, Steve? Dr. Zach did a good job, and he did. One of the things that I give a lot of, credence to, and really I have a lot of respect for Dr. Zach and his legacy here at Mississippi State. Part of that is Dr. Zacharias believed it wasn't just propaganda, it wasn't just a line, but Dr. Zacharias believed Mississippi State was the best institute of higher learning in the state of Mississippi. And I think he, because of his own passion for the university, helped Mississippi State people feel a little more worthy. He gave people a little more self-esteem, a little more pride in the university. And I remember, all this craziness. When Ole Miss started the whole flagship thing, which is so incredibly stupid, And Dr. Zach, a famous quote, he said, well, if they're at the flagship, we're the starship. I believe it. At the time, too, Mississippi State's a research university, and just really have done a good job kind of seeing the maturation of the school in my lifetime. And we've come a long way. We really have. And I wrote about the history and kind of the founding of Mississippi State and all the things that went along with that back in Stark Villains. And there's probably about 100 copies left, less than 100 copies right now that are in print, they're available. So if you want to get one of those, you need to. I'm really proud of that book. People ask me all the time, Steve, what's your favorite one? And it's usually the one I'm working on or the newest one. And of course, Dogpile was a book I was born to write, and Flim Flam changed my life. But I probably learned the most writing Stark Villains. And I had some people message me and say, this should be part of Mississippi history. Well, it is. It is part of Mississippi history. It's not taught in classrooms. It should be. It's not. But there was some things, and I go back to, post-Civil War Reconstruction, with the Morrill Land Grant Act, at the time, the only true university in the state of Mississippi was Ole Miss. They had been founded, prior to us. And so as a result, they said, hey, well, let's take this Morrill Land Grant money and we'll set up, the A&M programs, be another division of the school. It didn't work out, because the bourgeoisie of Mississippi did not like the farmers' kids, the commoners, going to school with their kids. And it's funny how that same refrain happened a little bit later, a couple of generations later. We're not happy with these kids going to school with our kids, and so this whole "we're not snobs, we're better than you" dates back many years. But they took the moral land grant money and some money that had been allocated for Alcorn State. There are a lot of people that don't know that. They established Mississippi State University. And then we began to go. And there were a lot of people that stood in the gap for Mississippi State. I have read about state legislators that really kind of stood in the fire to even get Mississippi State, the idea of Mississippi State, approved. The university was founded in 1878. First students walked in the door in 1880. As you guys know, we started playing baseball 5 years later, 1885. Thank you, William Jennings. But there was also some things that happened too that kind of correlate with, with the folks up the road there in Oxford. There were many people involved with the University of Mississippi that fought tooth and nail against the very creation of Mississippi State. They didn't want any competition. They didn't want the farmers' kids going to school with their kids, but they didn't want another alternative. They wanted to kind of keep all that to themselves. And what's interesting, too, are you guys familiar, and I wrote about this in Villains, with the Felix Lab Scholarship? Are you familiar with that? Former French military man, moved to Mississippi, actually set up shop outside of Macon, Mississippi, tried his hand as a farmer, figured out that wasn't his thing, and ended up moving to Hernando. And as part of his dying decree, he set aside a portion of his fortune to establish a scholarship for orphan boys in DeSoto County. And so, because of the fact there was money involved, there was eventually this position established called the Labab trustee. And so eventually, the Labab trustee basically became a full-fledged member of the IHL board. And of course, they were affiliated with Ole Miss. So initially, the charter for the Labab trustee was they were just supposed to be a steward of the scholarship to ensure the money was, paid and, spent properly. It was really more of an oversight type position. And then in time, there's always been this will to power in the state of Mississippi. The part of the landed gentry is all of a sudden the Labab trustee began to be a full voting member on the state college board. So every other institute of higher learning in Mississippi had one vote, and Ole Miss had two. They had their regular representative, and then they had the Labab trustee. Well, eventually that was killed, and the Labab scholarship still exists to this day, and that's amazing, to be honest with you, even though it doesn't impact us. But those scholarships, of course, were allocated for those kids to go to Ole Miss. And it's not that that Felix Lab was an Ole Miss fan per se. He was a man of education, and he was a man of the people. And at the time, the only university in Mississippi was Ole Miss. Some people have kind of misconstrued that over the years. But I say that to, number one, give some backstory, to show that at times the IHL board has been a hindrance to Mississippi State because there was deference to Ole Miss. And they controlled the state college board for years and generations. And it's been in my lifetime that you've seen this stuff change. And so it's not so far removed. And so when I think about that and kind of the spirit behind that, not the spirit of equality, but the, kind of the spirit of preferential treatment, I just think here's the deal. I don't think Mississippi State or anybody affiliated with Mississippi State should have any say in who Ole Miss or Southern Miss or Alcorn State hires. If they want to hire a football coach, they should be able to do it. We shouldn't get a vote. And nor, when we get ready to do those things, Ole Miss shouldn't have a say in what we do. You can say, well, Steve, it's really not that big a deal. Yeah, maybe not. But I think there is probably an argument for autonomy. I think there truly is an argument. You can say, hey, this is what's going to happen, and this is what we're going to do, and everybody could have their own board of trustees, and perhaps there's maybe some legislative oversight over the BOT. I don't know. But I'm interested to see how this kind of evolves, here in the weeks to come. It's pretty apparent that Chris Bell, the Democratic legislator, it's pretty apparent that this is an issue for him that he is not just going to simply let go, because now we've got two bills filed within just over 2 years of each other. Does it make it to the floor? I don't know. And what's interesting too, I read some of these comments, and I'll share a couple of them with you. About kind of what's ahead here. And there's this new peer report that's come out, and that's kind of been the impetus to bring this up again. There's this new peer report. You can read that. You can find it online. Google it yourself. And so Senator Kevin Blackwell says, we're not changing the process. We're not changing in the process of changing so everybody can relax there. That's kind of interesting. But I think one of the things, I think the writer here probably could have cleaned this quote up a little bit, but I think one of the things we do is we ask ourselves, how is this the way we should be operating? How can we do better? If we were to merge, would there be some savings for the taxpayers? Okay, that's always nice. I like to know that my tax dollars are being spent correctly. I'm not naive either. So Joey Fillingame says, you do get a lot of questions, but particularly around times where you have a big change in leadership, either in the university as a whole, like the university presidency or chancellors or the athletic directors and head football coaches and things like that. It's true. I agree. Senator Chad McMahon says, I don't think there's any intent to change anything, but we certainly want to study and understand the issue completely. So it doesn't sound like that there's like a lot of support to abolish the IHL board, but I don't think this is something that goes away. I think this will continue to be an issue. And usually what happens, it's like it's not on our plate until we have to go hire somebody. And again, I don't know that Mississippi State has ever had any hindrance making the hire. I think you begin to ask yourself, do you need, this level of oversight? Do you need this expense in one of the most impoverished states in the union? Is this necessary? And I go back to the whole Bob trustee thing. I think there are some people out there that simply want control. And that's not to say they're all Ole Miss affiliated. That's not what I'm trying to suggest. But I think the IHL board over the years, State College Board, no matter how you call it, has had some issues. You go back to the game of change. The State College Board had a big say in that. And then that's actually an Alpha Dogs. Thanks to the Bill Stone family, we were able to get some of those documents that related to, the State College Board having to debate and vote and things of that nature if Mississippi State was even going to be able to go play in the NCAA tournament. And so, I share that with you because, again, to kind of show some examples of when Mississippi State has been somewhat dependent on an approval or a decision, with the IHL. And so, shouldn't we, as a university or an athletics department, be able to decide what and when our students are going to participate in? Why would we have to have this, to ask permission, this whole other step in the process? Now, granted, it's a much different time now. We all get to go to the NCAA tournament now. But this is a body at times that has had some flaws, and I think at times, too, has been an encumbrance. And so my hope is that maybe some of you that listen to this, and I know that we have some state legislators that listen to the show, is maybe reach out, maybe give me both sides of the issue. Just shoot me a message on the DMs, give me a text, whatever. Many of you know me. I'm just curious to see if there is traction for this. What is the positive for it? What is the downside of it? I think we, as the general populace, need to know these things. I don't think it's just something that should be, discussed in committee. Is this something that needs to change? And because we all love Mississippi State so passionately, we're concerned about what's best for Mississippi State. And so reach out, let me know. And if we get some good information, I'll share it with you. I won't dedicate 30 minutes next time. But I just wanted to kind of discuss this today because, again, it's come up again. And it just seems that now that you've got the strength of this peer report, that perhaps maybe there may be more support to at least have a dialogue about, what is the IHL board's function should there be some changes in the mandate. And again, we don't talk a lot of politics on the show, but because I felt like, number one, it's kind of slow right now, but also, two, with this issue in the news again, maybe it's time for us to have a dialogue because we want what's best for Mississippi State. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think many of us care who Ole Miss hires, right? I mean, like when they go hire their chancellor, number one, we shouldn't get a say. I don't know that we don't have strong opinions about that, but there are other people that do. And that whole process, there were a lot of people on the Ole Miss side that were really, really lit up. And again, I think it worked out well for them. I do think from what we understand now, Glenn Boyce doing a good job there. So I think all's well that ends well. But at some point, we're going to have to hire another president. Dr. Keenum's not going to live forever. At some point, he'll retire. And so when that time comes, we want to make sure that we're being treated fairly. We want to make sure that we're able to get the person that we've identified as the best potential candidate to lead our university into a new era. And should we have to get permission from the IHL board? Well, currently we do. And so maybe it's time for us to talk about the process because you know how it is. It's like things aren't hot button issues until you become emotionally invested in something. And so that's kind of where we are. It's like right now is a good time to talk about it because we don't have a decision pending before the IHL board. But do we need this? Just some food for thought. All right, time for today's Top 10 list brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair is a longtime friend of mine. He is a friend in the mortgage industry. Now, fortunately, I haven't had to deal with a mortgage business here as of late, but you may be in a different situation. So if you are a person that is looking to refinance your home, and maybe you haven't considered that, maybe you should. It's like, hey, we're living paycheck to paycheck now. It's every week. It's a bit of a struggle to get through the week. Maybe it's time to consolidate some debt down to one low monthly payment that's also tax deductible. How about that? Get off the roller coaster of revolving debt. A lot of people have used credit cards to supplement their income. Maybe now you've put yourself in a negative situation. Consolidate that debt with the equity in your home, whether it be, or maybe you want to add a second mortgage because you need to get some cash out to do some work around the house. Maybe you've got a wedding to pay for. Maybe you've got some other issues. I don't know. I don't know your situation. But you have issues, and for now you have a solution. Would close with Blair. Let me give you Blair's personal cell number because we're all friends and family here on the show. 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. Give him a call or text today. Mention to him you heard about him on the Boneyard. He'll pay for your appraisal. There are a lot of people that want your business. Blair's proven it. Simple as that. A guy that's been in the mortgage industry for 21 years, back-to-back years in the top 1% close ratio in the country. Works for Fairway Mortgage, recently voted number one in customer satisfaction when it came to mortgage origination. Closewithblair.com. All right, today's top 10 list. This is Roy's choice. Roy stepped up and I had a lot of people say, "Hey, Steve, I like the Tom Cruise list," and then I like the playlist that Roy put together. So Roy, thank you. Roy was on vacation, no access to Spotify. I'm going to be similarly situated next week. So again, we'll get some programming for you on Monday, but probably do a Monday Tuesday show. And then maybe take Friday off and then come back the next week. So you might miss a show or two. I know, and that's the thing, too. I like making you miss me. I mean, I'm very consistent, but I rarely ever take some time to myself and my kids. And so we're going to take a trip together because I'm about to have another one leave the nest. And I've got one in Arkansas, about to have one in Florida. So before everybody disperses again, I would like to have a chance to kind of get together and celebrate family. So here is the top 10 list that Roy suggested. He sent me a handful. Some of them are really good ideas. Some of them I've taken some time to think about. But one of the easiest ones today is he said, how about bands with couples? Bands with couples. Well, you start thinking, there's a bunch of those. And there are, but most of them aren't very good. You're like, Steve, no, you. It's like I see all these little alt indie bands that sold 500 records and they get their picture on a list and it's like, oh, they were great. And let me opine here for a second. You want to know why bands, the periodicals like the Rolling Stone are no longer what they once were? Number one, there's online reading, but you could read Rolling Stone online. But here is what happened to music journalism. Here's what happened. And there was a time that was my dream, is to work at Rolling Stone. That would be incredible, to write about music. And maybe someday, I'll do that. But here's the deal that's so interesting to me. There was a shift in the, I would say, mid-90s when it came to music journalism. And so we quit being reporters and, in many respects, true journalists, to basically become, advocates for our favorite bands. Now, I say that because there was all of this angst about rock music at the time. It's like, you identify, with the guys in the spandex pants and the spiked up hair and the makeup and everything else. And then the guys from Seattle are too depressing. Metallica's too hard, So I'm going to go hitch my wagon to this guy that's not selling any records. And I'm going to go see if I can't help him. Well, there's a reason that he's not selling records. And it's not because he's underexposed. He's just not very talented. That's the thing, too. I'm a firm believer in art. You write what's in your heart. You don't write for an audience. But what happened with Rolling Stone, and I'm happy to sit down and discuss this with them, because I remember it when it happened. You can go read like the Rolling Stone stuff that pops up online, and I do that sometimes when I'm getting a top 10 list together. Like you guys will ask for, something about a particular topic or something like this. Like I'd go Google, to make sure I didn't miss anybody, bands with couples. And you go pull these things up, and it's like the top 100 songs from the year 1997. And you're thinking, hey, there's that. And it's like, wait a minute. Why is Pearl Jam at 89? What? It's ridiculous. And then you get like the top 10. And most of the bands in the top 10 are people you've never heard of. Or bands that you just kind of have heard of. Maybe in passing. You've never seen them. Like they're never on the radio. And it's like, so we become these hipster doofuses. It's like, well, this band is so underappreciated because, they hadn't had press. And so we compromise our journalistic integrity and put this, Franz Ferdinand's the number 2 band of the 90s. No, they're not. The people speak. And so, I'm a guy that loves obscure music. I love being able to go back and find like influences and things like that. I love what I like. And we do the top 10 list, and I share those things with you. And one of those things too is it's an interactive relationship. You guys say, "Hey, Steve, what about this?" And I put a list together, and we can celebrate that music together. But I would never come out here and say, "Hey, well, this band that sucks." But I kind of like the shirt the guy was wearing or whatever, or the girl that plays keyboards is really cute. And even though they've sold like 500 records, they're the number 2 band of 1998. That's what killed Rolling Stone. That nonsense right there. That's what killed Rolling Stone. Because people like me are like, number one, I'm kind of a mainstream rock guy, right? I like 90s R&B. I can listen to some country. I can tolerate some of that. But I like to hear about new bands that are going to be big. Like when Blind Melon was on the cover of Rolling Stone, I was like, man, these are Mississippi guys, man. Look at this. Made me proud. But we knew they were going somewhere. Like Temple the Dog, right? When Pearl Jam and Soundgarden got together, they actually recorded that before Pearl Jam was famous. And then all of a sudden, when Pearl Jam gets going, and people are like, hey, A&M's like, let's re-release Temple the Dog. And so now all of a sudden, it's like, you hear Pearl Jam on the radio, you see them on MTV, and you're like, I want to know more about these guys. So you know what, Rolling Stone? Let's write an article. Let's get the guys on the phone. Let's get in an interview room somewhere. Let's sit down and discuss. Tell me about the band. What's your vision? How did you guys get together? Tell me your story. And that's what you should do, because the better part of journalism is getting answers to the questions that your readers have in mind. and perhaps even some questions maybe they haven't realized yet. So it's like even with us at genespage.com. It's like all of a sudden on the message boards, people are like, hey, what's going on with this kid? And so Paul or Robbie or I or David or somebody would say, okay, well, let's get an interview. Let's get to the point here. Let's find out. We're your go-between between the information you desire and the information you don't have. And so you have to kind of be able to read the room a little bit. Now, if I just wanted to get out there and write columns every day about the things that just matter to me, well, we'd lose readership pretty quick. You have to be in tune with what your readership wants. And there'll be times like, Paul and I will text, and it's like somebody would say, hey, I heard this about a kid, and then Paul will text me. He goes, hey, I'll get this one. And so I think that's part of, our vision is that you guys basically tell us what you want to know about, and we are receptive to that. Rolling Stone saw it differently. They were like, hey, no, you're going to like this band. We're going to make you like this band. Yeah, they suck, and they're not selling any records, and they can't book any major shows, but because I want to be an opinion maker, you're going to listen to this. You're a loser. And it's like back in the day when we had record shops, we have a few today, but used to you had one in every shop mall. And we go to Camelot Music, which was such a great moment, or you go to Sound Shop. Sam Goody, it was great. Bebop was my favorite, but I love going to Bebop Record Shop because that's where my friends were. A lot of friends I hadn't met yet, right? It's where we met friends. It's where we found out who was having the party, who was going to the reservoir, right? And you meet a cute girl or two, You never know. Some girl would show up in there with some big hoop earrings and teased up hair and a Motley Crue shirt, and I was in love. And so I say all that to say this, is that, and I've kind of chased this rabbit trail longer than I wanted to, but when you get out and get things going, like there's just so much with this music journalism thing that just drives me bananas. It absolutely drives me bananas. Basically we become, and I don't know if they don't take money for it, they become a PR arm for failing bands. So it's like, hey, so when Bon Jovi played with Cinderella on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and many of you were there, I was there too. February 13th, 1987, I was there. I remember like it was yesterday. The concert sold out in like 10 minutes. And it was a big news story. And so the Biloxi Sun-Herald wrote a story about it. The Clarion Ledger wrote a story about it. Bon Jovi at that time was the biggest band in America. That's newsworthy. What Rolling Stone would have done is Rolling Stone would have found like, Skid Roper or Mojo Nixon or something, and let's do a feature story on these guys. Bon Jovi's getting enough press. Well, the reason that Bon Jovi's getting all the press is Bon Jovi's selling out arenas, man. Bon Jovi's got the number one album in the country. People want to know. And so that's what you do. You don't do all of a sudden like, well, let me redirect the conversation because I don't like this band, or I don't like this team, or I don't like this player, or I don't like this coach. That's a problem with American journalism today. Not just in music journalism either. All right, let's get to today's top 10 list. Now that I've chased that rant for so long. All right, top 10 bands with couples. We're going to get to this pretty quick. And I'll give you a quick story, too. When I was a soccer player at Jones County Junior College, short-lived, went there, recruited to go play soccer at Jones, and I got there, and then all of a sudden the sponsor left, and they said I had to have a team. So I ended up transferring to PRC. But when I was at Jones, we spent a lot of time. Sometimes we'd go to the Sawmill Square Mall. Other times we would go over to Hattiesburg. But, of course, it was cheaper, even though gas was about 85 cents a gallon back then. We'd go to the Sawmill Square Mall sometimes just to go hang out. You could go to the food court. We were broke. Once a month you get some money from your family and go buy a CD or something. And I walked in the sound shop in the Sawmill Square Mall. And they were playing this band. And guys, it was awful. I mean, the tuning was bad. The tone was bad. And, they have these, like, buy it and try it. And so I walk in there, and I'm like, what is this we're listening to? I mean, and around, you could think this is, this is like 90, 91. So we're like at the end of, like, the hair metal movement and the beginning of grunge. We already had Soundgarden out. We had Screaming Trees out. There were a lot of great rock bands. Rock and roll ruled the world. And again, kind of like the writer from Rolling Stone, you got the girl at Sound Shop that, wants to play her band. And they actually turned out to be pretty good. They grew on me a little bit later in life. But I was like, who's this? She goes, oh, this is the Sundays. Do you like it? I'm like, no, they should be lined up and shot. You kidding me? Put on something with some distortion. What is happening here? But I did pick them in this list. Top 10. And we're actually going to break a rule here. We're going to go with the covers. The Sundays had a couple good songs, and the singer's really, really good. But their cover of Wild Horses from the Rolling Stones is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And yes, I had a very quick gong because I was a bit of a music snob in my earlier days. But the Sundays version of Wild Horses is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Number 9 on the list, Sonic Youth. I believe these guys are still playing. I know that they went out on a major tour here a couple years ago. Sonic Youth, Kim Gordon and Thurston are married. I guess they're still married, but they're still playing. And Sonic Youth had a huge following kind of in the alt-rock community. And Kim did most of the singing. Hey, Bulldog business owners, if you're like me, I know exactly what my business needs. Sometimes it's difficult to find the right candidate. Today, there's so many people out there in the job market making it so competitive. It's almost like an interviewee's market. Maybe it's time to flip the script and bring in the hiring power of your friends at Indeed. Instead of spending hours upon hours on multiple job sites or combing through resumes for candidates that might not even have the right skills for you, Indeed's powerful hiring partnership can help you do it all. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description. The moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed.com, you're going to get results. That's one of the best things about it. And here's the deal. Being a Boneyard listener, we're going to give you a little incentive to give our friends at Indeed a try. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/Boneyard. That offer is only good for a limited time. You can claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/Boneyard. Indeed.com/Boneyard. Some terms and conditions may apply, but we're here to help you find the right candidates to fill all the vacancies at your business.
Underdog Fantasy is the fastest growing fantasy app and easiest place to play fantasy sports. Just jump on UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app, draft your team, and that's it. And if drafts aren't your thing, they also have a pick'em game where you can win 20 times your money in a single night. Use promo code RADIO, and Underdog will double your first deposit when you sign up with up to $100 in bonus cash. Deposit $100, get $100 free. That's promo code RADIO. Terms and conditions apply.
And I would have to go with the song Cool Thing. I love the opening riff to this. And again, the tuning's off a little bit. But I dig the song. It's got a little crunch to it. Number 8, going back to 83, but this is a timeless classic. I don't think that I didn't do a ton of research on this. I don't think the wife is still in the band. But New Order released the song Blue Monday back in 83. And that song still gets played today. Think about that for a second. You could write a song like that, and 40 years later, they still play it on the radio. And it was really kind of the beginning of the techno movement in many respects. A lot of people were using drum machines. This was not synth pop that we played on Top 40 radio. This is what got played in clubs, and it's still played in clubs. Number 7, going back a couple generations here, the Mamas and the Papas, Michelle Phillips, an absolutely beautiful woman and an incredible singer. And I tell you this, Mama Cass does not get enough respect. Mama Cass was, she died early in life, but what a remarkable singer. And I tell you this, again, it's a cover. I didn't include this on the list. You want to hear a beautiful song? Go listen to Mama Cass singing Dream a Little Dream of Me, the old Doris Day song. It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But on our list today, we're going with Monday, Monday. And I love the harmonies of the Mamas and the Papas. There's a synergy with that group. Of course, they were very, very involved in, in the 60s and kind of the rise of new and kind of protest music. Number 6, I know many of you are huge fans of Jack White. And, Jack's a big baseball fan, too, which makes me like him even more. Jack's actually involved with War Stick. If you're looking for a a new bat. Maybe give the folks at Warstick, founded by a former Mississippi State baseball player. How about that? All right, but the White Stripes. Now, Jack and Meg for a while said that they were siblings. They weren't. They were married, and they were divorced, and they stuck it out for a while, and then it kind of fell apart. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge White Stripes fan. I know some of you really are, and I think a lot of it, too, is people tend to love what was around in their college years. It's like because those memories are so precious to you, you remember the soundtrack. But the White Stripes, when you listen to the full catalog, a lot of it sounds the same. It really does. In some respects, it's kind of watered down, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for that. But Seven Nation Army is a great song. I almost went with, was it Fell in Love with a Girl? Almost. But Seven Nation Army, that's your White Stripe song. That is the White Stripe song. Number 5, and I put this band ahead because they've had more hits. And some of you would say, Steve, there's no way. No, 100%. It's the band Skillet. 2 couples in this band, and we're going to go with Monster. And they've had several big hits. They played them on Sirius XM Octane, which I suggest you listen to. But Monster from Skillet is a great tune. Love the guitar on that one. All right, number 4. Now, this young lady here, Gwen Stefani from No Doubt, has had a lot of relationships, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But she dated Tony from the band No Doubt first, and then they ended up breaking up, but remained together as a band. And eventually, she married Gavin Rossdale from Bush. And I was also at that show down at the Lakefront Arena in New Orleans when Goo Goo Dolls and No Doubt and Bush came through Mardi Gras weekend. I was there at the show. And on that tour, Gwen Stefani, Gavin Rossdale fall in love, ultimately have kids, got divorced. And I've seen Bush in recent years, and Gavin still looks and sounds amazing. But No Doubt, we're going with Spiderwebs here. And one of the I didn't want to go with like the prototypical, I'm just a girl, or, underneath it all, don't speak. Spiderwebs is a really, really fun song. And at their heart, No Doubt is kind of a ska band. Number 3, and I think that when we're honest with ourselves, these top 3 classic couple bands are undisputed. It's Yoko. No, it's not Yoko Ono. No. Number 3, it's another Beatle. It's Wings with Paul and Linda McCartney. And Paul is a musical genius. It's not a surprise that anybody would feel that way. I honestly believe that some of his best songwriting was with Wings. And now I've got some friends of mine that are huge Beatles fans. They're going to say, Steve, that's sacrilegious. No, it's not. Because Live and Let Die is an amazing song. And I love the Guns N' Roses version of it. But Band on the Run was really good. But Live and Let Die is excellent. And we talk about some of the greatest songs in the history of rock music. Live and Let Die is on that list. And Guns N' Roses was the perfect band to cover it. But there's no doubt at all that belongs on this list. Wings. All right, number 2, a band maybe you didn't expect to be on this list, but it was actually comprised of 2 different couples. That's right. We're talking ABBA. And there are a lot of people that believe, ABBA in many respects, because of the harmonies, really kind of changed American music, because ABBA was huge in the States. But we're going with SOS. That's a breakup song, too. Whatever Happened to Our Love. I Wish I Understood. This song was actually covered really well by Fozzy. That's Chris Jericho's band. So maybe if you're familiar with this and you like Chris Jericho, maybe give that a listen too. But ABBA, SOS, number 2. But number 1, the greatest couples band of all time, and at some point I think everybody in the band has dated or been married, it's Fleetwood Mac. Because, Lindsay and Stevie showed up as a couple, and she eventually broke up with him and dated Mick Fleetwood for a while, and then there's John and Chris McVie, and so they're very connected, shall we say. Lindsay no longer in the band. I'm a huge Lindsay Buckingham fan because I play guitar poorly, and recently just picked it back up. But I have so much respect for Lindsay Buckingham as a player. Like a lot of people think about him as a lyricist and a vocalist. You listen to that live solo at the end of Go Your Own Way. It's crazy to think about that. It's absolutely crazy to think about that he's plucking that out without a pick. It's amazing. It really is. But we didn't go with that. We went with The Chain, which is my favorite Fleetwood Mac song. Maybe you disagree, and that's okay. There's so many great ones to choose from. I enjoy just kind of talking about some of this classic music. And so Fleetwood Mac, The Chain, number 1 on our list of top 10 bands with couples. And again, that was Roy's idea. If you have an idea for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. You can find Roy on Twitter at Dogmatic67. That's DAWGMATIC67. And he'll put you on a list. And eventually we'll get to you. Eventually, we got a lot of good ideas out there now, but we're always looking for more. And you never know, you may send me something that I really like, and I may go ahead and move you to the front of the list. And again, thanks as always for your support of the top 10 list. Glad you guys are enjoying it. All right, we didn't do it earlier in the show. We didn't recognize our friends from Prime Shrimp. PrimeShrimp.com is an outstanding place to get your merchandising for your shrimp. Here's the deal. I get messages just about every day now from people that said, Steve, I tried it. It's a great product. And it absolutely is. I wouldn't partner with people that couldn't deliver on their promises. And you deal with that a lot in life, especially these days with all the supply chain issues and unemployment issues and things of that nature. Some people just aren't delivering on their promises. Prime Shrimp always does. Go to primeshrimp.com and use promo code Boneyard. Save $20 on your first order. How about that? And I submit to you, too, that the money-back guarantee is outstanding. How many places or how many companies can you eat their product and then if you're unsatisfied, get your money back? Money-back guarantee is always at primeshrimp.com. 4 great flavors to choose from. You'll be glad if you used them. I'm telling you, that French Quarter Alfredo is my favorite. I like them all. But the French Quarter Alfredo, when I think, okay, that's what I'm going to have for dinner. And a lot of times it's just me. A lot of times it's just me here myself. And so I can get those fettuccine ribbons and I can boil those up. And then I can get a pot of water together and get it boiling. Drop that shrimp in there. The Alfredo sauce comes with it. In like 10 minutes, I've got a high-quality meal. No cleanup or prep necessary. You don't have to devein the shrimp. You don't have to peel them. You don't have to remove the tails. You just open up that handy pouch and just drop them in. Again, that's primeshrimp.com. Promo code Boneyard. Use it. Give Mom a break. Trust me. Once she starts using it, she's going to be like, hey, this is really good. Trust me on this. All right. Our friends at Campus Bookmart are sponsoring the next portion of the show. I love Campus Bookmart. You will too. Great people doing a great job for a great fan base. The latest in Mississippi State merch always available through the folks at Campus Bookmart. The lovely, talented Susie, Miss Kathy Brown, Miss Pam Minyard, everybody up there does a great job. And when you walk in, it's like going to Cheers. They're all so happy to see you because they know that you're family. There are a lot of places you go and you look around and it's like people kind of ignore you. And you're doing them a favor. They're doing you a favor by being there. That's not the case. Quality people doing a quality job. They're at Campus Bookmart. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net and use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. All right, let's talk a little baseball recruiting here. That's been a really popular topic here as of late. As well it should be. And I don't, that's the thing too, you begin to kind of realize now that maybe baseball recruiting is in some ways maybe kind of having the same impact on fan bases as basketball and football. A lot of people really love football recruiting. I think we're beginning to see baseball recruiting take a step forward because the game has advanced. There's a lot of people now that have more of a vested interest, and coverage of college baseball now is kind of becoming a year-round event. We got the fall baseball scrimmages, and now all of a sudden you've got the transfer portal to deal with, and there's a lot of interest, of course. A lot of it. All right, so let's take a quick look here at the class of 22. We talk about recruiting. I think let's back up a little bit more here. Let's go back to 2020. And let's look and see how Mississippi State has done. Okay, so class of 2020 for Mississippi State was ranked 18th in the country. And believe it or not, that was actually ahead of Ole Miss. They were 19. But looking at our contemporaries, Florida was 13, Arkansas was 5, South Carolina was 4, and LSU was 2. Vanderbilt 1 as always. Scholarship advantages there. 2021, and a lot of these guys, as you guys, they commit very early. All right, 2021, Mississippi State was 15th in the country. 15th in the country, and once again, ahead of Ole Miss. Our contemporaries, Texas A&M 13, South Carolina 12, Alabama 10, LSU 7, Tennessee was 5, Arkansas 4, Vanderbilt 2, Florida 1. Now, the best signing class to date in the Chris Lemonis era is the 2022 class. And ironically, we actually finished behind Ole Miss this year. Mississippi State 8th in the country. 8th. Auburn ahead of us at 7, Arkansas at 5, Ole Miss at 4, Vanderbilt 2, LSU is at 1. Now, I think Jay Johnson's going to do a good job at LSU. What's always going to be interesting is how are they going to kind of perform away from Alex Box. When you kind of recruit to that ballpark, it's a different deal. All right, so let's run through kind of this class a little bit, and I'll kind of tell you what I'm hearing about things. All right, the number one player in our class is shortstop Jet Williams, a 5'8", 187-pound shortstop from Rockwell Heath there in Heath, Texas. We went into Rockwell and got Braden Locke as a quarterback. But Jet Williams is expected to be a first-rounder. Everybody you talk to, he's a consensus first-rounder. There was some discussion earlier because of his size that perhaps he wouldn't be a first-rounder. It could be a guy that ultimately comes to school. This guy's going to be cashing a check for millions of dollars here in about 2 months. Jarangelo Sagente is the ambidextrous pitcher. Get the right-handed, left-handed. There's some rules that go along with that. He's from Pembroke Pines, Florida. Now, one of the things that we know about South Florida baseball recruiting is there are a lot of those guys, those scouts, like if they don't get what they want out of the draft, they will encourage guys to go to junior college for a year and then re-enter the draft pool next year. Well, Jarangelo is planning to be here at Mississippi State here in about 4 weeks. Now, that's not going to preclude him from being drafted. He can come here for summer school and then be drafted there July 19th. But we're beginning to hear that maybe he's not going to go quite as high as originally projected. So there's a good chance of him coming to school. And again, here in the junior college is not an option for him. But he's either going to be a Bulldog or go in the draft. So again, kind of a different skill set there, being an ambidextrous pitcher. Dakota Jordan, I spoke with him earlier this week. He has elected not to go to pre-draft workouts, not going to the combine. He also will enroll early here at Mississippi State. I think there's a good chance he comes to school, getting more and more chatter. Because about 6 weeks ago, the talk was he really wants to sign. And he told me in the interview, he goes, there's more to it than just the baseball part of it. There's, the living life aspect of it. You got to pay bills and you got to be responsible for yourself. And, that's a lot for a young man to take on. And sometimes going to college is good. It teaches them to be a little more independent before they enter kind of the adult world. So at this point, we do project him to come to school. He was a football and baseball commitment, but will be baseball only now at Mississippi State. All right, the fourth highest rated member of the class is Ross Highfield. I'm a huge Ross Highfield fan. He is one of the more athletic catchers that you're going to see. Perfect Game awarded him a perfect 10 in their ratings. How about that? You'd expect that, right? Mississippi State should be able to get those kinds of guys. And Mississippi, a baseball crazy state. But Ross Highfield is a guy that can hit for power, can hit for average. From a physical standpoint, he's a little more advanced than some other guys. I don't think there's any question. This is a guy that can be a difference maker for Mississippi State. He, too, is electing to come to school. He's elected not to attend pre-draft workouts. I was told he had 9 pre-draft workout invitations. He has turned those down and was invited to the baseball combine and not going to go there as well. All right, the next guy on our list, and those first 4 guys were all rated a perfect 10 by Perfect Game. And that's a pretty good draw for us to be able to kind of get those guys, guys that have Major League Baseball potential and Major League Baseball interest. But those 4 are going to be, 3 of those 4 we expect to be here. All right, so, and again, Jarangelo, that's still kind of iffy. Bradley Lofton, left-handed pitcher out of DeSoto Central, and I've had so many people tell me this guy is going to be a real dude on the college level. He's been a real dude in high school, and again, didn't have the best outing against Northwest Rankin, but that in no way diminishes his high school career. This guy has had an outstanding career. I had one scout tell me that Bradley Lofton may be the key to the Mississippi State recruiting class. He's that good. He thinks that he could pitch on weekends right now, even if it's in middle relief. Now, I made a comment yesterday. We did some baseball bones. I put out like 5 things that we're hearing about baseball recruiting. And somebody responded and said they're good friends with the Loftons and said it's going to take a lot for him not to come to Mississippi State. I'm hearing that his asking price is rather substantial, and it's not because they're being greedy. It's just because of the fact that if he's going to bypass college, he's going to need life-changing money to do that. And so we'll see how things progress, but kind of beginning to have some rising optimism that we get him. Now, Mclean Ray is out of Belden, Mississippi, went to Tupelo. This is another guy, too, 6'4", 195-pound right-handed pitcher. Didn't do a lot of perfect game stuff, but this is one of those guys, too. You look at, we need arms. We need young arms to kind of get developed, but he is a guy that I'm told will be a guy that will be a professional baseball player at some point. All right, Logan Foresight. This is another dude, man. I mean, like you talk to some of the guys that are involved with the Mississippi State's recruiting class, guys that are in the class. Logan Foresight is a guy that has a ton of potential. Right-handed pitcher, outfielder, shortstop, plays at D'Iberville. He's rated a 9.5, but he's a dude. And he's a guy that could potentially get drafted too, but we're hearing to expect him to come to school. Now, Will Gibbs out of Jackson Prep. A lot of people in central Mississippi have told me that this is a guy here that maybe even at a 9.5 is a little bit underappreciated as a prospect. Will Gibbs, another big strapping guy, right at 6 foot, 185 pounds. That's another dude that they're expecting big things from. Evan Sierra is a guy that went to Starville Academy. A lot of people are high on him. Another pitcher, another right-handed pitcher, and the thing that you hear about with Sierra, and he's topped out 95, 96, is how competitive he is. That this is a guy that's going to get out there and throw strikes and throw his best stuff at you, and then we'll kind of see how things progress from there. And so we expect him to come to school. And so here's the rest of the group too, and we do expect these guys to be here. And so if you kind of look at it right now, the only sure guy that is in the signing class that we don't expect to be here is Jet Williams. And it looks like State's going to do pretty well. And one of our posters made a great comment. You want to have some signees that give you a little heartburn when it comes to the draft. You don't want to go out and sign a bunch of guys that aren't getting Major League Baseball interest. You want guys to turn down money and come to school. Now, in the past, we'd say, well, we don't need to go sign these guys because we're going to lose them. I think now there's some families out there now that really are realizing the benefit of college baseball. And there are some guys, obviously, too, that don't have to wait the full 3 years to be draft eligible. They could be draft eligible after a second year on the college level and then still have 2 years of leverage to work with. So it kind of puts them in a better bargaining position. Charlie Keller is a third baseman from Mobile, Alabama. Another guy, too, that we're expected to come to school. Keller is a guy, too, that has pitched a little bit, too, but will be a third baseman, we suspect. Colton Bradley out of Pelahatchie, Mississippi, Highfield Academy, didn't play, a great brand of high school baseball. But when Mississippi State wants you, you're a dude. In Highfield Academy, this is a team, too, that plays in maybe the lower level, I guess, of MAIS. I don't know if they moved up this year, but Colton Bradley's a guy, too, that a lot of people believe he is kind of a dirtbag. He's a guy that'll get out there and really compete, make the difficult play for you. Bryce Hubbard, a catcher from Woodstock, Georgia, out of Wesleyan. Another guy, too, that, rated really high, a perfect game. Rated as a 9 with those guys. Bats left, throws right. I like these left-handed power bats we're getting. David Mershon out of Taylor, South Carolina. This is another middle infielder type guy, another left-handed hitter. Could play either of the midfield spots. I suspect that, possibly maybe more of a second baseman. Jay Murdoch out of Dawson, Georgia. 6'2", 220-pound first baseman out of Terrell Academy out there. been committed for a while, rated as an 8.5 by Perfect Game. So again, another quality player. We've gotten so caught up in a transfer portal, it's like you forget the fact that you get all these dudes coming. Jackson Parker from Stringer had an incredible senior year for Stringer. Had the walk-off home run to send those guys to the state championship. A guy that is kind of unheralded in some respects. Played at a small town, but everybody you talk to talks about this is a guy that's a big-time competitor. And I like the fact that it's the Mississippi State kid up there with the season on the line coming through with the big hit there. Brock Tapper is a guy, left-handed pitcher out of Nesbitt, Mississippi, and I love these incredibly loud pinstripe uniforms that DeSoto Central had. And DeSoto Central has been really good to Mississippi State. State's been good to DeSoto Central. It's a great high school baseball program. So you kind of know the quality of guy you're getting there. Austin Tomasini is out of Madison Central, and we have had some good success there as well. If my memory serves me correct, he also will be here in July. And so that gives you Hunter Hines, that gives you Ross Highfield, and then Tomasini, all from Madison Central. It'd be nice to kind of keep that Madison Central and DeSoto Central pipeline going. Ryan Williams is another catcher. That's 3 in this class. He's out of Cypress, Texas, but he's also a utility guy, can pitch a little bit as well. So that's what you've got right now, and I think it's important to kind of look at this and kind of understand that this is going to be a deal where Mississippi State is going to have a good mix of high school players and a good mix of portal guys. You need them both. And there's so many people that say, well, Steve, are we abandoning high school recruiting in favor of the portal? Well, I think what you're going to do now is you're going to chase the high school stars, supplement from the portal, and I think the developmental guy probably ends up going to junior college, and I think this maybe benefits Southern Miss a little bit too. Those kids in the past that maybe State don't miss would have chased, may go there. Just because of the fact I think that the demand to win here is so much higher. To me, that's very interesting, and it's kind of look like Ross Highfield. I'm just kind of give you an idea, too, that a lot of people say, well, he's a Madison Central kid. Okay, he's got offers from Appalachian State, Auburn, LSU, State, Old Dominion, Samford, A&M, Tulane, UAB, Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, Tennessee Martin, Texas, Vanderbilt, and Delta State. And then he chose Mississippi State, as he should. You look at Bradley Lofton, and I'm sure they've added some offers since then. LSU, Mississippi State, Florida, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. When you're competing with the Blue Bloods there. That's what people, well, Steve, I don't really know what the perfect game ranking looks like, but what does the offer sheet look like? And so I think it's important to kind of look at that stuff too. Will Gibbs, a guy from Prep, Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama, Ole Miss, Southern Miss. That's a good offer sheet right there. It's a really good offer sheet. And so I just throw that out there just to kind of give you an idea of kind of, the quality of players that Mississippi State has from an objective third-party evaluation group rather than just us, right? It's like it's one thing if we're just sitting here telling you these guys are good, and that's kind of how it used to be in football, right? Everybody's like, well, if so-and-so says they're good, they got to be great. Well, you don't have to take our word for it. You can kind of, look and listen to, the offer sheets that are out there. And I think that's a big part of it too. And, it's a little different, I guess. In football, there are a lot of people that claim offers they don't have and to kind of generate some buzz. But baseball is a little bit different, I guess. And that's not to say there's not people out there that don't have, offers listed on their profile that are not, not big-time type guys. We're talking about Austin Tomasini, looking at him now. Offers from LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Southern Miss. And that's a guy that's down your commitment list. It's a guy that didn't command a huge rating. But you look at his offer sheet, and you're like, hey, if LSU wants him and Ole Miss wants him, they got to be pretty good. At the end of the day, I think if Mississippi State wants him, that's enough. But it's also nice to get your evaluation, kind of confirmed by somebody else. That there's somebody else involved in this deal that says, hey, we believe this guy's an SEC guy as well. And so I just throw that out there too. I'm not going to run down the entire list, but I thought you guys would find that of interest, that these are the dudes that are coming in, because we've had so much focus on transfer ins and transfer outs. I don't think people really appreciate the fact that we've got a really good class, the best of Chris Lemonis's Mississippi State tenure that's coming in too. And these are guys that will be around for a little while. And you've got some junior college guys coming in as well. And so I just think it's important. Let's look at the totality of the situation. And you got some big-time dudes from the high school ranks coming in, and it's always difficult for a freshman. You remember J.T. Ginn came in and did pretty well too. And he had the weight of the world on his shoulders the whole time he was here. I don't think there's any question about that too. This is a guy that there are some guys too that I think will kind of follow in that same path of coming to college and then kind of improve their standing. And it's one thing too, like a JT Ginn. There's a lot of people out there that say, "Hey, I turned down, $25 million." JT Ginn had a contract in front of him. He did, and wanted to come to Mississippi State. And I think that's an important aspect of all of this. And that's a guy too that came here, and even though he was banged up a little bit, put himself in a situation where he made more money. Now, looking ahead a little bit too, we talk about, that's the first top 10 class for him, for Lemonis and Mississippi State. Well, we're stacking them because in 2023, as it stands today, Mississippi State 8th in the country. And that class isn't finished, obviously. Those guys will sign this fall, but you're 8th right now. Ole Miss 17, Alabama 16, Tennessee 15. Like people are like, oh, Tennessee's recruiting at such a high level. Well, Mississippi State's ahead of them for 2023. South Carolina 13, Auburn 10, Georgia 9, State is 8, Florida 7, LSU 4, Arkansas 2, Vanderbilt 1. So we're right there in the mix, those blue blood classes. And I'll give you a real quick rundown of this before we move on. But, Dylan Cupp, Cedartown, Georgia, highly rated shortstop, the highest rated player in the class. And he's a big-time guy. And we're probably going to have to fight hard to keep Major League Baseball off of him. Nolan Stevens, first baseman out of Elk Grove, California. That's another thing, too. I like shooting down these narratives. People are like, well, we need to recruit more than just Mississippi and Alabama. Well, here you got a Georgia kid, a California kid. Then you got Jackson McKenzie from Pace, Florida. Another big first baseman, 6'3", 210. Mekhi Grant, a guy from Georgia, right-handed pitcher. And you got Reeve Reynolds, Jackson Prep. Kylon Parnell is a guy that has recently picked up some football offers. He's out of Pascagoula. And then John Walsh, Alexandria. Louisiana pitchers have kind of been interesting for us, haven't they? But I just bring this up because I think it's important. You have to have a balance. High school recruiting and portal recruiting. And you got to get some junior college too. And I think at times we've been a little bit junior college heavy. And I think it's hurt us a little bit. But that said, there are a lot of layers to this deal. And I think it's important to kind of understand that we're not just reliant on the portal. And to read the genespage.com message boards, that's all anybody wants to talk about is the portal. And so we've written some articles, Robbie and I both this week, about some of the signees and kind of what's going on with them, because there's some help on the way. There are a lot of reinforcements that are headed to Mississippi State. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by our friends at Portico. Speaking of baseball, that's Brooks Bryan. I see Brooks down there on the beach right now. Must be nice. I'll be there next week. And I submit it's probably a better beach, Brooks. No, Brooks is my buddy, man. And here's the thing, too. Brooks got a lot of friends. And because, when you're a nice guy, that tends to happen. May explain why I don't have more. But Brooks is involved with this great group that's bringing this wonderful residential development to Starkville, Portico. We've talked about it many times on the show. If I was moving to Starkville now, it's where I'd move. There's no question about it. That is where I would move. And so I think it's kind of important for you, if you're considering moving to the Starkville area, or perhaps getting an investment property, or perhaps just getting a place here as a secondary home. Maybe one day it'll be your retirement home. Now's the time to move. Now is the time to make the move. Phase 1 is completely sold out. 10 houses now being constructed in Phase 2. 2 of them are sold. So there's 8 that are up for sale now. And then there will be some room for some more custom builds, right? And so you can still pick out your lot, pick out your house plans, and have your place in Starkville exactly as you want it. Just 1.1 miles away from the Mississippi State campus. Easy to find. You turn off 82 on the 12. The very first right is Pat Station Road. Very easy to find. You'll be glad you did. And if your real estate agent hasn't mentioned Portico to you, maybe ask why. That's where I'd want to live. Come be my neighbor. It's going to be incredible. Make Portico your next move. All right, I'm almost done with the show. And once I get done with the show, I'm going to head to campus because Top Dog campus this evening. There'll be some guys that'll begin showing up this afternoon. We want to be there to kind of get an inventory of who's here, get pictures, and kind of be the paparazzi, all that kind of stuff. The reality of it is, this is a big weekend for Mississippi State. Chris Parson, quarterback prospect out at Ravenwood High School up there in Tennessee, current Florida State commitment, is going to be here. It's a big deal just to get him here. But it's not just a courtesy visit. I've talked to some people closely aligned with the family. They say, hey, this is a serious thing. You know, he doesn't just want to be known as a dual threat guy. He can use his legs to go make some plays. And listen, think about what we've run in the air raid since Mike has been here. And if you had a guy with a little more athleticism, not that Will's a bad athlete, that's not what I'm saying. But KJ was a guy that really wasn't a running threat. Will is adequate as a runner. That's not his strong suit. But Parson can be. But Parson's also, he wants to be considered a pass-first quarterback. And his numbers are good. He completed almost 70% of his passes last year. And running a different scheme. So he's going to be here. His dad, Lamont, took some classes at Mississippi State. Family's from Pascagoula. I understand he still has some family in the greater Starkville area here in the Golden Triangle. So that's big too. So he's going to come, take the visit, and then we'll see. There is a lot of chatter, even among the Florida State publishers, 247 Sports, that Florida State's going to have a tough time hanging on to Chris Parson. And not just because Mississippi State's involved in Mike Leach, but there's been maybe a rift, maybe some misunderstandings or a miscommunication on the part of Florida State, and maybe that's being nice about it. But I understand when Chris Parson committed to them, back a year ago, in July of 2021, that he was assured he would be the guy in his class, and he's been kind of working to recruit and get other guys to go to Florida State. Then all of a sudden, Florida State's decided to go chase two more quarterbacks, or chase another quarterback. They're going to have two in their class. And apparently that's not been very well received. And that's not in any way to suggest that Chris Parson is not scared to compete. But when you have a coaching staff that gives you an assurance of, hey, this is how things are going to be, and then they change, and you find out about it on social media, you got to rethink things. This is a big decision. And Mike Norvell is a good coach. Mike Norvell did a great job at Memphis, and I think he's going to do okay at Florida State. I think he needs to have a big year this year. But Florida State, that's a blue blood program, and I think we need Florida State to be good for the health of college football. But all that said, a lot of chatter that Parsons is going to back off that commitment. Now, will he do it this weekend? I don't know. I'm not expecting that. I'm not expecting him to flip. I mean, I guess he certainly could. But based on what I've heard about the situation, they're going to get out, come tour the campus, not going to camp, no need to throw. Just spend some time with the staff, get to know the lay of the land here. What are my opportunities here at Mississippi State? And then go home, sit down, and make a decision over the next couple of weeks. Now, as a quarterback, you don't want this thing to linger in, right? If you want to kind of have a decision. And plus, I hear Chris is a very dogged recruiter. Chris wants to help put a class together. So the sooner you get a quarterback in, the better off you're going to be. And again, State's offered 9 quarterbacks in this class. Mike Leach is not a guy out there that's going to throw a ton of quarterback offers out there, because what if somebody wants to commit that doesn't really fit the scheme? And Mike is very involved in the quarterback evaluations himself. He watches all this film himself. And then he and his guys sign off and say, okay, let's go make the offer. And then Leach, more times than not, is the guy making the offer. Now, there are some guys, too, that are listed as quarterbacks in the 247 database that aren't being recruited as quarterbacks. But Chris Parsons certainly is. Not the biggest guy. He's around 5'11", just under 6 feet. Good thing we're in the shotgun, right? But the guy really throws a deep ball well. The underneath stuff is very, very good. And then, of course, too, when things break down, he can tuck it and go and get you first down. And so it'll be good to see him on campus. And then hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him after the visit. But no guarantees. We're going to try. And then, in addition to that, because you don't want anybody to feel overshadowed when they come and talk. I mean, I suspect there'll be less than 100 today, and probably a cattle call of guys on Saturday that come to camp. But a lot of your in-state targets, and Paul and I spoke yesterday, Paul Jones and I, we hadn't been able to nail down Isaac Smith yet. It'd be great to get him on campus, and that's a guy with a lot of Ole Miss ties. And in the beginning, I was told he's definitely going to go to Ole Miss. Now I'm told he's a little more open about things, and State's still kind of chasing him. I'm not in any way trying to suggest State's in charge or not. But State's has developed a good relationship with he and the family. And so I'd like to get him on campus, be around the other in-state guys. All 4 of your commitments are going to be here, and then a lot of your in-state targets. Again, I think just about everybody but Isaac Smith has confirmed that they're going to be here. And some of these guys, too, we've only seen them on tape. And it's, a lot of times that the highlight tape is shot from on top of the press box, and so you don't get a really good idea of how big certain guys are. You can see how explosive they are. And so it'd be good to kind of get field level and see how big these guys are and kind of see, what they're about. I'm excited to get back out there. I love this time of year. I love being able to kind of identify the puzzle pieces, but also, too, the guys you've been talking to for a couple months, you get a chance to see them in action. You can say, yeah, this is a sure enough bona fide SEC guy. So, again, this time last year, I'm getting ready to go to Omaha, right? I go to a camp, and next thing you know, we're on the road. And so Paul had to cover a lot of that. So that's one benefit, I guess, of us not going to the College World Series. We'll be able to provide more in-depth coverage. I would much prefer to be in Omaha, don't get me wrong. But I'm looking forward to being out here and having a chance to see the guys work out and compete, kind of watch them interact with your coaches. And we'll have a ton of interviews. We'll get a bunch up, and that'll kind of linger throughout the next week or so. We'll do our best to kind of distribute that. We're going to interview as many guys as we can, especially all the guys with offers, and certainly the guys that get new offers. Those are the guys that we're kind of identifying. There will be some walk-ups. There'll be some guys that come to camps that are not Mississippi State offer candidates. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. I mean, you can't have an invitation-only camp. But they'll have like an unofficial visit. The guys will start filtering in this afternoon, and then we'll have an opportunity to see them in action this evening. And so there will be a game thread. If you're a genespage.com subscriber, and you should be, Paul will have a thread on the board, Top Dog Camp live thread. And as things happen, develop, guys show up or guys get offers or whatever, we'll update that thread, and then we'll have some stories tonight and some evaluations, some guys that we saw. That's what we're there for, right? We're there to go watch those guys compete and then kind of communicate that information to you. Zay Alexander, big offensive lineman out of Tupelo. I like him a lot, and he's lost about 30 pounds season to season. He was a big guy last year. He's still a big guy, but he's in better shape now. He's cut some weight. He's quicker. He's faster. I'm eager to see him in action. And that's one of the things I love about the camps. It's not just the one-on-ones with receivers and DBs. I like to see the OLDL reps, especially this year, because I think this year there's a couple of guys in Mississippi that, are maybe marginal SEC guys, and I think they need one of these situations here where you've got, you get a chance to go compete and show these coaches what you can do and show that you belong at this level. And there's a couple of guys in state that are kind of in that mix, guys that are surefire D1 guys. Are they SEC guys? And this is a chance to kind of maybe take a step towards proving that. I think Zay is absolutely an SEC guy. I don't think there's any question about that. And so I do expect him to be a Bulldog. Not sure when it's going to be, but I think that Zay Alexander is a guy, probably a big name to watch. And then you've got the Delta contingent. You got a Morion Blakes. I'm a big fan of his. Dante is another guy that's going to come. Dante Kelly's going to come out there. I think do a good job. Kelly Jones out of Clarksdale. I'm eager to see him. Kendrick James. And then, Jamarius Brown from Moss Point. That's a guy that in the beginning people said Mississippi State didn't have a chance with. And then there was talk on the Ole Miss side here a month ago that he was on the verge of committing to Mississippi State. He is not as big as listed, but he is explosive. I would absolutely take him. And I think this camp is big in that respect. I think if he is a guy that goes out there and has a good camp, I think you could see Mississippi State kind of ratchet up their pursuit of him. But it was a good job getting him on campus before. Again, people acted like it was a foregone conclusion that he would not come to Mississippi State. Came to campus, had a great time. But again, we never really know who all's coming to camp. We reach out to the guys that we are aware of and find out they're coming, and it looks like it's going to be a really, really good turnout for tonight. And then tomorrow, like I said, it'll probably be one of those 300 or 400 cattle call type camps, and that's anybody can come, right? And so you never know who's a prospect and who's not. So we'll have to kind of watch that a little bit closer. And there'll be a lot of high school coaches that come up and say, "Hey, Steve, can you get a picture of my kid?" And we'll meet guys that way too. And so we'll have some information. And again, this is this is kind of what I built a career on, is this kind of stuff. And kind of the infancy for me as a sports writer, when I went to work for Gene, is doing recruiting. And I remember when people used to do one recruiting story a day, and I started doing 3. And so we kind of ramped it up a little bit. And I was like, hey, I've got time. So now I don't have quite as much time, but I love getting out here and kind of getting back to my roots. And Paul and I both talk. There are times like, we're kind of on the fence. I really like this kid. I'm not so sure. And you get a chance to watch them together. You get a chance to watch them compete. And what's interesting, too, is like we don't really compare notes until we're done. And more times than not, whether it be me or Robbie or Gene or Paul, we get together and it's like, hey, this kid's really good. And it's like you look at your list and you're like, yeah, I've got him written down too. The cream always rises at the top. So full coverage of Top Dog Camp over at genespage.com. And then on Monday we'll come back and we'll talk about the developments, and I'll give you some comments and some guys that maybe took a step forward, perhaps some guys that didn't, and maybe we've got a commitment or two to talk about. I'm not expecting a huge commitment weekend. We've had those in the past. We had like an 8-9 commitment Big Dog Camp several years back. Not expecting that. I think this staff is a little more cerebral. And we only got 4 commitments right now. We haven't really pushed. And I think this weekend will kind of give us maybe a refined pecking order of sorts. But I'm excited, and you guys should be as well. So follow all the happenings over at genespage.com tonight on our True Maroon forum. All right, the second printing of Dogpile is finally here. Got them yesterday. A few changes made here and there, and I know many of you were kind of waiting for the second printing. It's here, and we're going to put, I guess there's less than 100 of the first edition. We're going to put those back. We're going to keep those. We're going to hold those back, and maybe sell them at a later date. So now when you buy one, you're getting the new edit, and it's got a little bit different book jacket. But so when you see that, you'll understand it's a second edition. And so I encourage you now, go out and buy the book now. In stores, they still got first editions. When you order through Dogpile, the book website, you're going to get the second edition. The new and improved edition, I guess you could say. And, of course, I told you guys before, there's less than 100 copies of Stark Villains available now, less than 100. I think it's about 60 or so. Alpha Dog's right behind it, right at it, like 80 or 90. And so we're not going to print those books again this year. We'll probably do a short run next year, but there's no guarantee. So they may be out of print for a while. So if you haven't picked up Stark Villains and Alpha Dogs, now's the time to do it. Because you're going to wait. And this is how it always works. Steve, where can I get Stark Villains? Hey, it's not in print this year. And they're like, maybe you can find it at a bookstore. And then you've got to call around. Save yourself a trouble and just go ahead and buy it. And, of course, you get Blooms of Oleander through Amazon.com. You can get it as an ebook, too. A lot of people ask about that. That's the only one of my books on ebooks is Blooms of Oleander, the shortest one. And then, of course, Dogpile. And Flim Flam. Like if you've got like the Ole Miss father-in-law, maybe get him a copy of Flim Flam for Father's Day. How about that? That's a good idea. That's a good idea. You can get that at dogpilethebook.com or in great bookstores everywhere around the great state of Mississippi. That's going to do it for today, man. I'm getting ready to go out there and enjoy Top Dog Camp and look forward to getting back and chatting with you guys about that a little bit later. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
And now it's Geico's Motorcycle Rules of the Road. Avoid biking in the rain and never touch another person's bike.
Hey guys, look at these bikes. So shiny. Whoops. I'm gonna leave a note. Oh gosh, there's more.
And the rule to saving on motorcycle insurance is, in 15 minutes, Geico could save you 15% or more.
Target has Laundry Day covered because they offer a great selection of concentrated Tide Pods to help with all your laundry needs. Tide Pods clean, freshen, and help rejuvenate your clothes with odor fighters and stain removers. Did you know Tide Pods clean better than the leading liquid bargain detergent? Tide Pods are powerful enough to make your whites white and your brights bright, even in cold water. Just toss in 1 Tide Pod for small loads, 2 for medium, 3 for large. It's that easy. For great value and convenient pickup options, get Tide Pods today at Target.